David is CEO of the M3 Media Group and founder of the Thought Club. He's also a digital publisher who also controls a portfolio of sector-focused magazines. His passion is, empowering brands and building reputations and enhancing sales. So David, welcome to the show. Can't wait to hear more about your Thought Club.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone, or good morning, depending where you are in the world. As Charanjit said, my name is David Lomas. I'm CEO of M3 Media Group. We're digital publishers. We have a portfolio of magazines, as Charanjit said, in different sectors. All the usual verticals. We have a business magazine, property construction, HR, manufacturing, supply chain, export, marketing, social impact, one or two others. We're very different in the fact we do no advertising. There's no advertising in the magazines. All the content is thought leadership content. We've changed the model over the years. We are in a position to distribute content, but I have a sort of attitude to the amount of content that there is out there. And we literally have millions, if not billions, of articles that get pushed out. And one sort of sensible thought that came from a lady psychologist I spoke to a few years ago. We were talking about the amount of content out there and how you've all got to get through all that content and make yourself heard. And she said her expression was, don't add to the noise, strengthen your signal. And I thought that was a fantastic expression. And it's part of what drives me to, in some ways, lessen the amount of content you're putting it out, but make it more powerful. And the key to it is thought leadership. I don't know what everybody understands by thought leadership. I suppose that in early days, my attitude was, well, people want to know what you're thinking about. No, yeah, to a point, that's it. But real thought leadership is when you can put an idea into somebody's mind and get them to think about it. That really gives value to it. I also asked the question, why is it important? Thought leadership's important because people like to follow, shall we call them thinkers, people who have got sort of opinions and attitudes. That's what we like to hear. It tends to be if they are good at what they do, if they are good at what they're talking about, they're usually people that we can learn from. So becoming a thought leader can give you an edge because it eventually means that you become the person to go to, not because of what you're doing, but because of the things that you are saying is making other people realize you have value. Okay. It's not easy to get across all your thoughts to someone. And of course, if you met somebody face to face and all you started to do was download all your thoughts to them, you'd turn them off instantly. It wouldn't impress them. But there is another way. And that simple way is to ask questions. And if you understand what a good thought leadership question is, then you can really develop your expertise when you're in front of a prospect or in any conversation for that matter. So whether you're using it to get new business, whether you're using it in the communications you're putting out from your business, whether that's to new customers or whether that's just to your existing customers, if we can get them thinking about the issues that you can help them with and how it can make a difference to them, that becomes very, very powerful. So I'm going to give you all a story of how I helped somebody in a very simplistic way with thought leadership. A couple of years ago, a lady came to me. She was working in the field of GDPR, data protection. Not the most exciting subject on the planet, which she also agreed. But she told me her problem and she said, David, I can speak to 10 or 15 people sometimes, and maybe one of them wants to have a second meeting with me. And she said, it's a real problem. And I said, well, I understand. I said, I don't think I would necessarily want to have a second meeting about thought leadership, about GDPR and data protection. She said, well, what can I do? And I said, well, my first tip to you is stop talking about GDPR. And she said, but GDPR is what I do. I said, it might be what you do. I said, but that's not what people want to talk about. You've got to find a common ground and a discussion with someone. Your GDPR services or offering is your solution. What you've got to find with the person you're talking to is what's the problem that is challenging them and deal with that. So she said, what do I do? I said, right, well, I'll create a headline for you. And I said, who do you want to get to? She said, well, accountants for one. She said, I work with accountants because I want to get in front of them to see their customers and ensure that they are GDPR compliant. So I said, right, okay, the first thing you need to do is get into conversations about, let's say, compliance. It's a lot easier to get into a conversation with an accountant if you meet him about compliance. You can ask him the polite questions you would ask anybody when you first meet them. And this is relevant to anybody, whether they're in property, whether they're in GDPR, whether they're working in HR. It doesn't matter. You start an initial conversation. Don't look for the sale, look for the conversation. And I said to her, start the conversation with that accountant. Maybe bring up a couple of questions. What size accountant are you? Where are you based? How many are on your team? You know, polite questions, taking an interest in their business. But then you get to the point of saying, what sort of things do you advise your clients upon, other than doing the basic job for them as an accountant? And that accountant's going to answer the question, and he may mention compliance, he may not. But that's a reasonable time when you can now bring up the subject of compliance. And I said, here's the question. And this is a thought leadership question. And I said to her, this is how I would write the content to publish in our magazine. And it would say accountants in the headline, so they know it's for them. Accountants, when does non-compliance turn into a crisis for your customers? And she said to me, that's a really good question. And I said, well, it is, because it makes that accountant think, what are the consequences if one of his customers failed on their GDPR compliance and got fined £50,000? I said, that's just gone through his mind. And that's the point. You've made him think, what are the consequences? That doesn't sound good. I said, at that point, you may even follow up with a second question as part of your discussion and say, and how could that actually affect your reputation? Now, that's really getting into his mind. But instantly, I said, what you can say to him is, the reason I asked you that question, Mr. Accountant, was that I was recently interviewed by, let's take my Business Aspects magazine, about that very subject. Listen, let me send you a copy of the article. It may give you food for thought. Can I call you next Wednesday and have a follow-up? She went away afterwards. She phoned me back the next day and she said, David, I told you yesterday that I could speak to 10 or 15 people before one person said we'd have a second conversation. I said, yes, you told me yesterday. She said, I used what you told me yesterday. I used the question that you gave me. And she said, I've had 3 meetings this morning. All 3 have gone into a second appointment. Thank you so much. So she's gone from having a sales approach success of 1 in 10, which is a 10% success, to 3 out of 3. That's 100% success. That's effectively 1,000% uplift overnight. And I said to her, first of all, well done for listening. I said, but secondly, even more well done for actually taking action. You actually used what I told you. And she said, and it worked. And of course, she said, now I need those articles doing because I want to send an article to set myself up with that second meeting. Now, here's where the benefit of the written content comes in. And obviously, we have the advantage that because we can publish somebody's written content. It gives that instant credibility. Because once they've read that article and she follows up with the phone call, the fact that she's in the article being interviewed, she's also probably putting yet another question to the reader within the article, because that's how we would write it. And that could be the question that I mentioned before, which is, you know, how could this affect your reputation? It's all going into the mind of the reader. So by the time that accountant came on the call, he was ready to say, I've been reading this article. I get exactly what it is you're doing. Can you go to see all my clients? She didn't even have to do a pitch. She didn't even have to ask for the business. He was asking her, would she go and see them? Because we'd got into his mind the consequences if something went wrong.
That sounds brilliant, David. Can I just say, can I just add there, I am just, how I'm hearing it is that you're advising your clients to get into their customers or their prospects' world almost. It's like find out their world, find out about what their needs or their problems are.
It's absolutely right? That's the key to any conversation. And that's where she was getting it wrong. She was talking about GDPR. Well, whatever you're doing for somebody, it's not relevant until they've realized what the implication is. I mean, I could throw up another thought leadership question. It was for I was talking to an HR lady, and we were talking about acquisitions and dealing with manufacturers in this particular case. And at the time, we were having a meeting, and I said, well, I could bring you in. I could bring somebody else in who's an expert in acquisitions. And I said, but I've got a marketing person over here. I said, can we bring him in? And she said, David, and this is where I got the question from. She said, oh, internal and external communication is critical when you're actually, you know, moving a company or buying a second company, because you don't want any Chinese whispers, as we call it. And of course, I then pulled out of that a brilliant thought leadership question, which is, how critical is internal and external communication during an acquisition? And of course, you know, within that same conversation or discussion, it begs the question, you know, sort of what are the consequences if it all goes wrong? You know, how could that also affect, you know, it could affect share values, it could affect values of the company, because you could lose all sorts during an acquisition if the staff get the wrong message, and you've lost half your staff before you've made the acquisition because they've all thought something's going wrong and you're selling out, and nothing could be further than the truth. So the content is the important thing afterwards. When we're working with a client, we would create 2 or 3 pieces of content for them. So whoever you came across, and a good example of this is, say, when somebody's doing an exhibition, you've got hundreds of people coming past your stand, you've got to stop somebody in front of you. The last thing you want to do, please, is start selling your product. If I've come to your stand, stop me, ask me, you know, what am I looking for today? Am I enjoying it? Have I seen anything of interest? Break the ice, but then say, tell me, David, what do you do? And I might say, oh, I've got a company with 30, 40 staff, and we do this. We're quite fast growing. And you'll say, oh, quite fast growing. Like, are you taking on lots of people? I'll say, well, we're taking on lots of people, lots of youngsters, but they seem to stay 6 weeks and then leave. And you will already have on what I call your mind shelf 3 questions. And the second question is about retention of staff. So once you've got into that conversation, the question you would be putting to me if you were an HR person and that was your stand would be, David, can I ask you a question? What impact is low retention. You know, you'd said you've had low retention levels, David. You're not keeping people. What impact can that low retention have, not only on your future growth, but on the morale of your staff in the meantime? And you think, oh my God, I wasn't thinking about that. I know it's slowing me down and I'm getting frustrated, but I wasn't thinking that by not keeping hold of staff and they're coming and going and leaving, how does the rest of my team feel? And there's the thought leadership yet again. You've put an idea into my mind that nobody else has done. Now, that differentiates you. I'm now thinking, we've got an HR person. They're not telling me this. You've seen me in 5 minutes and you've put that question to me. That's valuable. So there's instant value. The fact that the question is good and clever tells me that you sort of know what you're talking about because you know more about the business, which is, I get that you know HR, but you understand my issues. So you've also got value, you've also got impact. And then when you say to me, listen, David, reason I asked you that question, I was recently interviewed by HR Aspects magazine. Can I send you a copy of the article? Have a read of it. I'll call you next Wednesday. I'm not going to say no because you've impressed me. And the minute I open that article, which could be 5 minutes later, I'm already thinking, this girl knows what she's talking about. It can have a dramatic effect. And that's just a couple of examples there. But even on an exhibition, it's a methodology that gets you to move through all the people at the exhibition, get the details, send them something, put them in the diary, politely move them on and say, I don't want to keep you. You've got loads more to see. Push them away and get on to the next one. It works in so many places, but the content, the value is in that third-party endorsement. It's what we call in the PR business earned content, because people see it. There's not a pile of advertising around it. It looks like this guy's in here because he's good, but we also make sure the content is good as well. So those are two simple stories that I can tell you. That's the bit about thought leadership. It can make a dramatic difference to a sales presentation.
I can really see what you're saying there, and how you're really just honing in on the value you can add through this thought leadership. And then, like you said, the content really adds credibility to,
it does. And it's how you do it. I mean, I've been in sales all my life and I've seen lots of salespeople. A lot of salespeople make the mistake of telling the customer, the prospect, oh, this can be valuable. Oh, this can make you. They don't need you to tell them. It is better you don't tell them. If I'm talking to somebody and saying, well, obviously I helped that lady and she multiplied a sort of sales approach by 10. And I said, listen, somebody might multiply it by 3. I said, now, I suppose, I don't know what your sales results are, but if you had 3 times as many appointments from putting in the same effort, I can't think what it might be worth to you at the end of the year. Pause for effect. He's already calculated that's worth another £100,000. I don't need to ask him. I've already got it in his mind. And within seconds, he's saying, David, what's this going to cost?
Yeah.
I've not had to make a sale in 15 years.
That's amazing. Would you say, actually, it's not sales you're doing? What you're actually doing is you're kind of enrolling the customers. And there's like, you say,
I get them to buy into what I'm doing, but anybody can do that. It works in a funny way. I was in I've been in with one of the banks, board meeting with one of the banks. I won't say which one. And I sat down with them, ready to do my pitch and, tell them all this thing. And I'd spoken to them all before and obviously using thought leadership to tell my story. So when I sat down with them, I said, right, well, I'll go through this. And they said, oh, we know all about your magazines, David. Oh, we know all about your thought leadership and all about how to improve sales and all the rest of it. I said, should I go now? What am I doing here? I said, they knew everything they're telling me. It's like, and I'm sitting in the board meeting with them. I said, so what do you want me for? They said, we want to work with you, but we already know what you can do for us. And that's the key. It's not what you do, it's what you can do for them. A salesperson can use it in a clever way, it will enhance his presentation. And I do not care how good he is. I will enhance his presentation using third-party content with a thought leadership question. But if it's somebody, and a lady came to me the other week, again, HR, and she said to me, David, I've been in HR for 20 years in big corporate. And she said, but I now work for myself. She said, I love HR. I know it backwards. She said, the one thing I hate is I have to sell myself now. I've got to sell myself to get work. And she didn't like it. She's not a salesperson. Whereas with an experienced salesperson, it gives them a sort of badge of honor. You know, you could walk into a meeting, do whatever you do and say, can I just let you, please have a look at this article. I thought it might be of interest. It's got to be about their challenges and pain. But when they open it, it can be fairly impressive if you've given them an article that's in a published magazine. It's like, okay, you can take him seriously, but it's well written. But for the lady in HR who was a little bit more nervous and not a salesperson, rather than a badge of honor, for her, it's a shield of protection. You know, she can use the article to do the job. Just allow somebody to read the article. We work with a training company at one of the exhibitions. We work with lots of exhibition people, as you can imagine. And one of the clients was on a stand and she got a QR code at the back of the stand. And she said, David, look what we've got. And I said, yeah, QR code. She said, if anybody comes to us and wants to know what we do, she said, the best way of explaining is to say, go to that QR code. It'll take you to a page with 3 articles on. Read the articles. They're about different subjects, but it explains exactly the benefit of what we do. And she said, David, those are your 3 articles. She said, that does a better job for us by far. And it means we're not spending 25 minutes with every customer on the stand trying to explain the benefits. So
it's like the article is kind of doing the introduction and the initial sales pitch.
It is, and it's providing the credibility as well, because it's you know, it's a decent quality. It's not like a written testimonial. You can put dozens of those, and nobody ever has a bad one. But a published article, it's better. It is better. So
David, would you say this would, you know, the way you work, would it work with all different types of businesses? You know, they're sort of.
Absolutely. It's really the power is initially for the individual, because once you get how to use the thought leadership question, it helps everybody. You could be in, I'll give you a couple of examples. You could be in a meeting of 10 or 15 people online, for example. And if somebody came to me and we're having a conversation about a particular issue and I've got something to say, I don't need to say it. If they came to me and somebody says, David, you know, how would you deal with this issue? And I'd say, can I put a question to the group? And I'd have a question ready to put to the group. If that happened there, but this didn't go well there, but that happened, what are the consequences and how is that going to affect everything? And I know I've generalized in that question, but the room goes silent and they all think, my God, he knows what he's talking about. I've said nothing, but I've made everyone think, oh my God, we didn't consider that. So that's the thought leadership. I can give everybody a question that can stop people in the tracks because it makes them think you know everything, but you've said nothing. So there are so many ways. Even I could teach a person, members of a team. I work with a lot of manufacturers. Some of them haven't got marketing people working for them, turning over 20, 30 million. They've got a couple of salespeople. I say, put your salespeople onto my training course, onto my Thought Club training course, and I'll teach them how when they're having a chat with Mr. John Smith on the phone, just dealing with one of his monthly orders, they can get into a conversation, say, oh, John, can I ask you a question? What are the consequences and how are you considering doing this? And if it gets him to stop and think, he or she only has to say, reason I asked the question, I was just reading an article, actually, my managing director has just been interviewed about that. Is it worth me getting him to have a word with you? Yeah, sure. You've just bought yourself an opportunity. But
I was going to ask you what the thought leader. I was going to ask you what the Thought Leadership Club was, but it's a training club, is that right? And also,
It's
just want to welcome Dill, who's just joined us. He's a pro.
hello, Dill.
Yeah,
Hi, Dill.
I'm in the naughty corner because I was late. But David, that was fascinating. I was just going to ask you a quick question. How many politicians have you trained?
How many what?
Politicians have you trained?
I'm working on politicians. I had 2 meetings with government last week. I'm talking to all sorts of people, and I tend not to sort of. I tend to say my piece, yeah, and I tell them what they're not good at, because they need to know, and they just lie. That's their problem. They tell lies, half of them. But anyway,
I mean,
let's not get into politics.
I mean, because I caught the bit where you said you've got everybody thinking, but you've said nothing. It just seems to be, that's what the politicians seem to be great at doing.
Well, yeah, but do they get people to think the right things? I don't know. Perhaps I should get into politics. But anyway, let me answer Sharanjit's question. Sure. Thought Club. Okay. I've been using Thought Leadership. We are having a launch of Thought Club on the 21st of September, which is only next week, although we're going to have 2 more. I've already got 70 odd people on this first launch. I'm going to have a monthly session where I'm going to do half an hour of teaching thought leadership. I can cover some of the things we've done today. I can teach people even how to make up their own thought leadership questions. We'll have a session on that. I can teach people about the structure of content. There's a particular way you structure content and discussions and presentations. Some people get it totally wrong. Yeah, you've got to hit them with the power up front and give them the opportunity so they see it. Then they're interested in the rest. And too many people put a lot of the nuts and bolts and the sort of stuff that we don't need to know. So we can help lots. I can help lots and lots of people. So we're going to have a half an hour of thought leadership training, but then we're going to go into 8 one-to-one breakout sessions on each event. So if somebody's coming to 12 of those, they're going to meet 100 people over the year. We're also going to put in a number of mastermind groups. We run what we call a market. Well, we called it originally the marketing challenge. It could be business challenge, marketing challenge. I could take this into all sorts of technology challenge or whatever. And if I'm okay for time, I'll tell you a quick story. We'd have 15 or 20 people around the table. The point is, this is a way to practice your thought leadership skills and bring the questions in, because you're with 20 members, we're all friendly, doesn't matter. You can try one of your questions out, and if it fails, we'll all be laughing. But you can try it in conversation. But the point is that the actual session is quite serious. I did one with a lawyer, big lawyer, 300 partners plus. 5 or 6 offices. They were opening a new office in Leeds. And I said, right, that's the challenge. Sit at the top of the table. We do these online, by the way, now, but I used to do them live. And he talked about his move to Leeds and what they were doing. And we had 20 people around the table. Everybody asked questions. And this is people from all sort of types of business, absolutely everything. Okay, electrical contractor, HR person, accountant, payroll person, doesn't matter. But they all asked a question, and then we went back round the table, and I said, right, we want a suggestion from everyone. And at the end of the meeting, I'd been on a different table, but I said to the lawyer, and I said, thanks for doing that. You're a pal. And he said, David, that was fabulous. So I said, what? I thought he was doing me a favour. He said, I learned more in 90 minutes around that table than I have in 10 years. He said, I took 5 pages of notes. That was wonderful. Now, if he did that, everybody else listened to the same conversations and suggestions. So not only have you got some great ideas, but when the great ideas come from people that are around the table, you then want to talk further with them. And that's the point. And I'm teaching those people, when you do ask the questions, have a really interesting question, because people go, that's a good question. He knows what he's talking about. You've said nothing, but you've asked a good question. But then when you come round the table to say, can I make a suggestion? Everybody's waiting for it. It gives you attention, and it works. So we're including those as well in one of the memberships. So
Yeah, that sounds amazing. And can I assume that those questions then can sort of extend to whatever those people are doing on social media? So whatever thought leadership question, they can put it out on their social media content.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. We would normally work with them, and I would create, as I say, I'd work with, say, yourself, and you said, this is the job I'm doing. These are the people I have to get to. I want to work out from you, what are the 3 issues that they're facing? It's always got to do with time, money, or whatever, or making more profits. So there's going to be a question within every sector. I can't always guess them straight away, but I can put those questions together. So once you've got that question, we create an interview article with you answering those questions and asking more questions. So it makes you look like an expert, right? In a very clever way. Now, you can use that content and repurpose it any number of times. It's your article. So you can, the phrase I used at the start, which was don't add to the noise, strengthen your signal. Quite rightly, if you're going to go on social media, stick to that central theme of what you're saying. Repeat, 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 repeat. Because every new customer don't come up with a new idea. It's the same idea, because they're still going to buy from you because you're saving them time or money or making them money or whatever. So it doesn't matter what it is, but get into the vein of using the same methodology and the same subject matter, the same question around the same subjects, and you'll get known for, she's the one that helps people in that sector.
So David, can I ask a question? Can I give you an example? Say if I was selling plant-based ice cream, how would you advise? Which is
okay. Who are you selling the ice cream to? It's the first question. Yeah, I tend to work in a business-to-business environment, so that we're not selling it from a stall, of course. But if you were selling ice cream into a supermarket, yeah, and you want it to be plant-based,
yes,
you're going to be talking to the marketing director of the supermarket or the buying director. Yeah. And his issue I used to work with the supermarkets, weirdly, all the supermarkets, Tesco, Morrison's, Safeway, some of them that aren't around anymore, Sainsbury's. I
remember Safeways, yeah.
Do you remember Morrison's bought Safeway, I think? Right, we've got to work out. You've got to know your market. He will have an issue of space, okay? He's not saying no to you because he doesn't like you. He's saying no to you because he's not got space on the shelf. He also has to make sure he's got sufficient brand space for certain people and not others. Okay, I'm buying myself time here to think up one. So he's going to say, sorry, can't fit your ice cream in. Okay, so we've got this. You put me on the spot here. Thanks. So there's got to be a question about. It's got to be with the way people are, my question will be, can I ask you a question? With the way people are thinking about the future of the planet and different buying signals, what are the consequences of not being up to speed with the latest products, and which other supermarkets might actually get a lead in front of you? It's got to be something like that. The consequences, if you're not going to take this, somebody else is going to take it and they're going to move ahead. I'm not saying it as a threat, I'm saying it as a question. And if I can stop him thinking, okay, I didn't think about that, I'll say, let me send you this article. I was recently interviewed, by the way, we've got a Social Impact magazine. I was recently interviewed by Social Impact magazine. Let me send you that. I'm going to come and talk to you about ice creams next week. And he'll say, okay, you've got your meeting. Job done. That wasn't perfect, but can you see where I'm going?
You did.
You did put me on the spot.
I did. Apologies.
So, David, a lot of our viewers are property people, and what they want to do is put a question to prospective people they're trying to do a deal with. Let's say, maybe not estate agent, maybe other property owners, and they're sort of negotiating a deal where they want to be put ahead of all the other competitors,
Yes.
even when they're offering less money. How would you sort of look at that, phrase that, or thought leader that?
Okay. I'm not, that's a harder one for me than what you've just mentioned. Right. First of all, we've got to find out the long term. It's sort of the long term of the future considerations. Most people work in the now, and it's like, this is the situation. I want to sell you this. I want to sit and talk to somebody, and my attitude is no, I'm not talking about what we do. Forget that. I want to talk about what you do, and I'm going to question you, Dill, and I'll be saying, tell me all about your business. I should already be aware, because I should have done my research. So I should know what you're doing, why you're doing it, what you're trying to achieve. But that's what I need to find out. I need to know what makes you tick, because then I can bring it into the question. At the moment, I don't know what it is, and that would be quite difficult to do it now. But everybody knows their own customers, and they will say, David, they don't like this, they do like this, and they all want to do this. They all want to protect themselves in the future. So you've got to find out, okay, what's that going to be? And I'll bring it into the question. So thought leadership is always about consequences. And I've got to basically say to you, the prospective customer, what happens if this doesn't go well, or you don't do that? And yeah, how could that affect such a thing in the future? And if I can get you to think about that you've not thought about, I've given you instant value. Because I've made you think, and you're going, okay, David, that's interesting. That's a different way of looking at things. I said, well, what's your answer? Well, I've not got an answer for you. I'll say, well, that's okay. I'll give you till next week. I'll call you Wednesday. Let me send you the article. I was interviewed by Property Aspects magazine about that very subject. So you look as an author, you look like, so I don't know what the question would be, but that is part of the job that we do. And obviously, when we're actually setting up those articles, that's what we actually charge for. You know, we'll write those articles, we'll publish them in the right magazine that suits you. So whether you want to get to property owners, whether you want to get to a business sector, whether you want to get to manufacturers, or when you want to impress somebody with your social impact credentials, it doesn't matter. I've got a place to put it, and you can use it time and time again forever until you say, I need 3 new articles doing, then I'll happily do you 3 more.
Yeah. Sounds interesting.
Can I come into that? You mentioned most of our members are property concerned, but we also have property professionals like you who do specific job, and you would rather like to get into other professionals as you do party wall, and you'd like to connect to more architects.
Yep.
So how would that is a structure, that's B2B.
Yes. I mean, it doesn't matter who it is. Whoever you tell me you want to get to, I would sit with you and say, okay, you want to get to architects. What are the issues they face? What are the concerns they have? What is it that they want to do? How do they want to be seen? So whatever it is you're getting to them, you're showing that you know them. And that's the key. I mentioned before about working with the supermarket groups, and I was in with the board of Morrison's, and I think marketing director said to me, David, he said, we like to work with you because you know us, you understand us. When you first came to us, you gave us 3 ideas, and we went with probably gave them 5 ideas, and we went with 1. He said, now you come to us with 2 or 3 ideas, and you know we're going to say yes to everyone. He said, because you know us. And I do. And people would come to me to get to Morrison's. I'll say, no, they won't do it. And they said, well, what do you mean? I said, they won't do it. And they won't, because I knew them. I knew my client very, very well. And I knew what they approved of. They were quite an old-fashioned supermarket when Ken Morrison was there. And he a little nicely old-fashioned, and they were. But I knew their behavior pattern. And if you know that, then you can put the right questions to them. And the question, all it's doing is telling them, you know exactly, you've done your homework, you understand them, and you're actually thinking for them ahead. And that makes them say, we want to talk to you. You're buying yourself into their trust and confidence. And that's what people forget about. Once you've done that, you keep the client. It's not about making the sales. It's about building the trust and confidence. And once you've done it, they'll say, right, we need to talk to you. And they ask you, and I've done it with food companies. I've done it with some major companies. I do it with all of them. And I get them to buy into me. So you've got to stand out.
I think
there's too much competition.
I think what you're saying, David, is you're really getting the customer, aren't you? You really get the customer. You really get them.
You've got to do your homework and your research. That's the homework. That's the research you have to do. Yeah, absolutely. But if you're working with architects across the board, you're only doing it once because, you know, they've all got the same attitudes and fears and concerns and values or whatever. And all we've got to do is get it covered in a question.
Yeah, it sounds like this is, I was reading about this or I was listening to a podcast. It's about, I think, consultative selling but putting it in a written format. Is that where we're looking?
Oh, spot on. That first story I told you about the lady, once she'd got that question to them, she got the retention, the value was there in the question. It's like, oh, okay, that's value. She then offers to send them the article. By the time they've read the article, they've got in their mind just a gentle, easy to read piece that's not written by her. She's just being interviewed. She's just the expert I chose. We've written the article. Okay. Yeah. And that's the key. So they don't feel that they're being pushed a message. And she only gave it to them because she happened to ask them a question. What a coincidence. Well, it wasn't a coincidence, obviously. But when they come on the phone next Wednesday, and she says, did you get a chance to read the article? I can also put a link in the article to a case study on the website. So we actually know that they've read the case study as well, which is like bingo. You know, not only has he read the article, he's downloaded the case study. And I'm saying, what did you think? And that person sits there saying, right, well, I'm reading this about this case study. Now, they've only got 12 staff, David. We've got 30, 40 staff. We've got more issues than this. Right? They go straight into that consultative discussion. You don't have to do a sales pitch. It doesn't matter what the subject is. They've read that you can actually help them because you've not mentioned what you're doing. You've just mentioned that you can help and you've given an example of how you helped somebody. They had the same problems and we did this and it's wonderful. And they go, that's where we want to be. We've got that problem. We want to be there. Right. Well, I can help you. Don't give the game away telling them what you do. Doesn't matter. Yeah, that's your solution.
Yeah, and I mean nowadays there's due to social media, people think you have to have huge numbers following you, but I'm guessing with your approach, you don't need those massive numbers because you're going to the top of the pile. It's only the one. It's not the numbers. It's not the vanity metrics that you're looking for. It's the targeting.
No, we've done that before. We used to push content out all over the place. And I can remember one month, my team said, David, we hit a reach of 20 million this month. What? Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The SEO boys come to me and they say, David, we can't beat you because we're trying to send people all the way around the houses. Click on this, click on that, shove all this out. So they hopefully go to your website. They hopefully click on it. They hopefully send you an email or contact you. And I say, I'll get my client in front of anyone because you can make an approach to that person. It's no good if you're selling little widgets at threepence each, but if you're selling property services and you've got a long-term client there, for God's sake, give me the respect that I deserve and don't treat me like a number. Come to me, talk to me, be polite, introduce yourself, talk about stuff that I'm doing, and then sneak in a question to me. I'll go, that's a good question. But you've made friends with me. You've just done things politely. That's all it is. It's just common courtesy. Just talk to people, ask them a little bit. Don't spend half a day doing it. But it works. It works. But yeah, it doesn't. It works with most businesses I talk to can use thought leadership. But you can develop it yourself in all the things you say. Stop talking about your products. Talk about how people can. Is there a different approach to this issue? It's like this guy's talking about stuff in my sector. I like that.
And when
That's all
you
it
say
is.
thought leadership, are we,
Yeah.
in a sense, this question-based, I won't
Approach.
say approach, yeah?
Yeah.
We're basically opening a loop in their mind that they've got to find the answer to, otherwise it drives them mad, doesn't it, really? That's what's going on underneath the surface.
Yeah. Well, it's you're finding something that's there, but it's been hidden away. If you came to, if I'm an accountant, you came to me about, GDP, this is what I do, GDPR, I could come and see all your customers. I just think, oh, go away, leave me alone. But you didn't. You came to me, approached, asked me about my business, how long I've been going. It's only 5 minutes, a couple of little questions. What do you advise? And I might have said, well, occasionally advise on compliance. Yeah, occasionally. David, you just mentioned there, occasionally, let me ask you that question. I'll put it to you again. When does non-compliance turn into a crisis for those customers? That's a good question. Nobody's put it to me like that. I'm not asking, can I go and see your customers? I'm saying, excuse my French, but it's a polite way of saying, when does the shit hit the fan? You do not know the answer. Because when that client of yours gets fined £50,000, where are you going? Hiding under your desk? No, you should have made sure he was compliant. You're an accountant. So he's realizing nobody's ever put that to me. Now you've made me sit up and listen. That's it. And then you just throw in, and how's your reputation going to go after that? Whoa, can you come in tomorrow? My God, you've made him think about the consequences. That's all it is. It's like doing property work. Okay, so if this isn't done correctly and it ends up falling down, what are the consequences when the local inspector of properties or whatever comes round to see you? Okay. How long will you be in business after that?
They call them council enforcement. Sorry, they call them council enforcement, guys.
Whatever they are, yeah, I don't know. I don't know enough about property. But, there's a consequence question when somebody's trying to, here's the point, somebody's trying to cut costs and you want them to pay properly. There's got to be a question there that says, what are the consequences when you do try doing things on the cheap, when you want to end up doing such and such a thing? Oh, right, you've made me think. Right, okay, let me send you this article, because it tells you how somebody got fined £150,000 and they got struck off the panel. They're not doing any more work. What? They don't want to read it, but get them to read it. And then they'll be back to you saying, okay, I'll pay you what you want. Make sure that doesn't happen. You've just made them aware of the consequences, but you've got to do it in a particular way. The content just makes it easy for you.
It's almost like, David, by asking them to look at the consequences, you're doing a kind of a mini risk assessment.
Sort of. Yes, you are. You make it in their mind. You're just doing it very quickly, making them think of consequences. And it's like, and we all, the biggest factor of driving sales is like two factors. That's all: fear and greed. I put some fear into them, or I put some greed in there and say, oh, how much could that earn you if you did this? That's a good idea.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter which it is. You've got their attention. I mean, it might not work with everybody, but generally, I rarely fail. But it makes people notice you. There's a much bigger picture, your brand and everything else. You become the thinking person's property consultant, or whatever you want to. You add more. You're not doing what everybody else is doing. Just that. You're doing more because you're thinking about the consequences. You're thinking about the way forward. You're thinking about the opportunities that you can put in front of people. That's what you want to get them to think about. It's like you become more valuable to me than all the others. And that's all I care about. Making you look more valuable than your competition.
David, can I ask you a question?
You can.
It's to do with when I say to somebody, thought club, thought leadership, they say, what is it?
It's a methodology. I teach a methodology to put people in a better position to get customers, to impress their audience and grow their brand.
Right.
Everything becomes better.
That you can explain. But
that's what we're doing.
What would be your tagline?
Tagline. I wrote one out yesterday, actually, and I can't remember what it was. I can't remember what it was, but I had a good one yesterday.
Because in your logo and in your title, there should be something to suggest what you do.
Oh, and yes, no, I know, and I did it yesterday, and we've just not put it into all of it together yet because we've only put this first launch event on for next week.
Wow.
I've got another 2 booked because we've already got 70 on this one. And I have got a tagline. I just can't remember the one we came up with yesterday, but a good question. And thank you for that challenging question, Surinder.
Right. So I have booked in for your launch.
Oh, have you? Thank you. Wonderful. If anybody wants to book in, if you go to thoughtclub.co.uk, at the moment, there's just a landing page there.
That's right.
Put your details in. Fantastic. We'll get you details. We've got 2 more coming up. I can tell you probably similar story to the one I've just told, but I can tell you about how we're going to work the events and put you in front of people. We've got some fantastic connections on there. And we know people. We've done them before. We've done them. We called them our virtual connections events previously, but now I said, no, we're going to call it Thought Club and relaunch it. And I've had people who've been on and said, we've been on 2 of your events and we've earned £11,000, David. I said, good for you. And somebody else has said, no, I've had £24,000 from one of your connections. If I'm putting good people together, which I enjoy, I'm going to teach them to get better. I'm going to put them together every single month. And that's the membership. It's an ongoing membership, but it's you'll hear about it. And it's very doable, not expensive, I promise.
I'm sure it is. So David, do you have anything else to add to today's discussion?
No, that's probably enough now. I mean, I could go on for hours, but I think everybody's going to be. I just want you to think about the potential I can give you, and I can help everybody, put you together with lots of people, and enjoy doing it. We'll have fun doing it, and I'll teach you all to think in a different way.
Okay, if you have any literature or anything about your business,
yes,
if you can email it to me or send it in some way, because we will have people inquiring about it.
Yeah.
Normally, we send out a what is it called, PowerPoint presentation, which people then we can send that out to them, and that way we can let people know about you.
Yes, I can send you some details of Thought Club, because that's the easiest thing. Bring people along to one of the launch events, and they'll get to meet people. They might even do business on the day. It's all online. And that would be fantastic. And good luck to everyone. I like connecting people. I enjoy it.
Anything else, Charanjit?
No, but thank you, David. That was really interesting, and I just really
thank you.
luck with the launch of the Thought Club. I think it sounds like it's going to be very successful, and
I hope so. Yes, I hope so. I'm sure it will. Yeah, and whilst I'm thinking on those challenge tables, we could quite easily have a property challenge and have a focus on a property issue, and put people around the table. So there's lots of potential once we build up the membership to have, different subject matter in those challenge events. So
can I just ask where it's taking place?
It's online. It's all online.
Oh,
everything's online. So easy.
It's online.
Easy. It's taking place from your own home.
Anyway, thank you very much for your presentation today. Very interesting.
It's a pleasure.
And I will be in touch with you later on.
Wonderful.
When we and attend your launch.
Right. Wonderful. Thank you. I look forward to speaking to both of you again. Shukriya.
Thank you.
Shukriya.
Bye. Bye.